I was fixing up the garage when my phone buzzed. Thought it was Doug, checking in about the fishing trip, so I didn't think much of it. But when I glanced down, it wasn't Doug. It was a string of messages from an unknown number. I tapped open the first one, and there they were. Amanda, smiling, her arm around some younger guy. In my cabin, my place upstate. The next photo had them on the boat dock, laughing, holding drinks out of my dad's old whiskey glasses. She was wearing my college sweatshirt. The message below said, "She's upgrading, man. Don't worry. I'll take care of what used to be yours." I didn't panic, didn't flip out, just sat there on the concrete floor, still holding the socket wrench, staring at the phone. The last photo was of them at the dock. The guy had his arm around her waist, and they were both looking out at the lake, like everything was perfect. I saved the photos. I wasn't ready to send anything yet. That night, I went into my home office, the one room in the house Amanda never bothered with. Not once in 15 years had she asked to borrow a pen from here or take a look at the books I kept. She knew better. I unlocked the filing drawer where I kept everything. The familiar clink of the metal against the lock felt colder than usual. Pulled out the thick folder labeled Stanton Holdings. Stanton Holdings wasn't some family legacy, though she thought it was. Amanda had always thought it was just some trust my dad left behind to keep us comfortable. What she didn't know was that I'd spent years shifting all the real assets under my name alone. The house, the land, the vehicles, every damn thing that was worth anything. All mine now. I turned the folder over in my hands, feeling the weight of it. Inside, the papers were stacked neatly, each one detailing the split. The properties, the shares in the business, the investments. Everything had been moved into my name while she was busy playing at book clubs and weekend errands. Maybe it was the way she started dressing like she was too good for the jeans and flannel I bought for her. Or maybe it was the way she'd stay out late, always coming home with that look in her eye like she was trying to hide something. I never asked, never confronted her. I just prepared. There were times I thought I'd been imagining things, but then there were other times. Those late nights she'd slip into bed smelling of perfume that wasn't hers, the one that lingered too long after she'd climbed under the covers. I couldn't prove anything, not back then, but now I didn't need to. I had everything, the titles, the deeds, the contracts. She'd spent years thinking she was the one running things, like she was the one with the power, but she wasn't, not anymore. I flipped through the folder, slow and deliberate. The paperwork was crisp, carefully organized, just like I'd done it. I felt the familiar tickle of bitterness in my throat. All these years, I'd built this, built everything, and she thought it was just handed to her. Thought she could walk away with it all, but I wasn't stupid. With the folder still in my hand, I went to the filing cabinet, unlocked a drawer where I kept the rest of my backups, another set of copies, this time of the original documents, the ones Amanda had no clue existed. I had everything. I didn't need to say a word to her. I didn't need to confront her. I had all the proof, all the work, all the patience. I slid the folder back into the cabinet, locked it, and exhaled slowly. A long, quiet breath. That was it. This was it. I had the upper hand. Now, it was time to watch it all unfold. The next morning, I called Roy Blakely. He'd been my dad's lawyer, semi-retired now, but still sharp as a tack. Roy had always been a straight shooter, never one to sugarcoat things. If I needed someone to back me up, it was him. I could hear the crackle of the old phone line when he picked up. "Blakely," he said, like he always did. "Roy, it's me. I've got something you need to see." I didn't waste time with pleasantries. Told him I had proof of Amanda's affair, the photos, the texts, everything. I didn't even have to say much else. He was quiet on the other end for a second, and then I could hear him clearing his throat. "So, you've got the goods," he said. "Yeah, everything," I replied. "It's all in place. I want to move on it." Roy didn't hesitate. "With the infidelity documented, we can skip the slow asset split and go straight to court with the prenup and the ownership files. If you've got everything you say you do, we can make it ugly. Make sure she gets exactly what she deserves." That was the thing about Roy. He didn't beat around the bush. He was old school, but he understood the game better than anyone. He knew how to make someone feel the sting without ever raising his voice. Amanda had always thought I was some dumb contractor, the kind of guy who drove a decent truck, worked long hours, and lived in the same small town where I grew up. She thought the family trust was what kept us afloat, that the house we lived in was just some lucky stroke of fate. She didn't know about Stanton Holdings, the company I'd set up years ago to keep things quiet, to keep her out of it. "You waited long enough, son," Roy said, his voice low, but with that edge he always carried. "Let's make sure she feels it." I let out a breath I didn't realize I was holding. He was right. "I'll bring you the files tomorrow," I said. "Let's get this started." Roy chuckled on the other end. "Good. I've got a feeling you're about to see a side of your wife you didn't know was there." I didn't respond. I didn't need to. I already knew what was coming, and honestly, I was ready. That night, I stood in front of the bathroom mirror, staring at the man looking back at me. 59 years old, still solid, still built like I could handle a full day's work without breaking a sweat. But now there was silver in my beard, like it had grown in to remind me how much time had passed, how much had changed. I ran my fingers through it, wishing I could scrub away the last few years. The years where Amanda climbed her way up, trying to become someone she wasn't. She used to call me old-fashioned when we'd go to some party with her wine and cheese crowd. Old-fashioned. I didn't mind. I liked being the guy who didn't care for pretension. I preferred dirt under my nails, a cold beer in the fridge, and a quiet night. But she hated it. Hated the way I refused to play the part of the polished, successful husband she wanted. The whole time she was running around playing at being the power behind the throne, I was the one signing checks and keeping the books balanced. She thought I'd be lost without her, thought I'd fall apart when she pulled her little stunt with Tyler. She was wrong. I didn't need her. I just needed a reason to clean house. I reached over to the shelf where we'd kept our wedding photo. It was one of the few things left on display. I stared at the picture of us, younger then, full of promise. Then I picked it up, my fingers feeling the smooth glass of the frame for a moment, before I flipped it face down. I didn't want to look at her face tonight. Not anymore. I opened the drawer beneath the bathroom sink, the one I kept for random papers and junk. In the back of it, there was a folder. I pulled it out, and in big bold letters, I wrote on the front, "Final move." Inside, I'd already started making notes. Small things, really. Notes on what was left to take care of. The house, the cabin, the business, the accounts I'd need to freeze. But more than anything, it was a checklist of everything I needed to make sure she didn't walk away with any more than she already had. Everything she thought she'd built was mine, and now it was time to make sure she knew it. I laid the folder on the counter, took one last look at the man in the mirror, and for the first time in a while, I felt a little lighter. It wasn't about revenge. It was about cleaning up a mess that had been building for too long. I found out through an old buddy of mine in commercial real estate that Amanda's new man was named Tyler Reeves. He was in his mid-30s, flashy, probably rented his Rolex, and had a way of showing up in the right places at the right time. Amanda had met him through a contractor mixer I'd hosted 2 summers ago. I remembered her saying something about how nice he was, how ambitious. I'd figured she'd go after someone younger, someone who could keep up with her climb. I dug deeper, talked to another guy I knew who'd gotten cleaned out last year, a guy I used to do business with. Turned out Tyler had been involved with his wife too, and that marriage was in the dirt now. The more I pieced together, the clearer it became. Tyler didn't just like married women, he liked married women with money, with assets, with property. These two weren't just fooling around, they were planning something. I could feel it in my gut. I started organizing everything I already had. Amanda had sent a wire transfer to Tyler a few weeks ago, labeled as consulting. Consulting? It didn't add up. I pulled the transaction details from my accounts. She'd sent him $5,000. $5,000, and for what? To help with what exactly? It wasn't just a fling. This was calculated. I wasn't just going to sit back and let her play me like this. Then I hit pay dirt. I pulled some security footage from the cabin. The cameras there were always rolling, but I didn't use them much. Not until now. I sat in front of the screen, watching as the images flickered. The timestamp showed it was late one night. Amanda, looking casual, strolling into the cabin with that Tyler. The footage was grainy, but I could still make out their movements. They were inside, moving around the living room, probably drinking. But then I saw her head to the back, toward the little office where I kept my safe. My pulse sped up. The video skipped ahead a bit, and I saw her pulling out the small velvet box where I kept my dad's Wei-T watch. That watch was a family heirloom, something that meant more to me than anything else. My father had passed it down to me, and I'd kept it locked away because it was too valuable to risk losing. But now it was gone. My throat went dry. It was gone. The watch. I felt the blood rush to my head. The things they were taking weren't just about money. This was personal. They had crossed a line that couldn't be undone. I backed up the footage and sat there in the dark room, staring at the screen. Amanda slipping my dad's watch into her purse like it was nothing. Like she hadn't just robbed me of something that could never be replaced. They were playing me, and now I had everything I needed to make sure they felt every single bit of it. That Saturday, Amanda invited her sisters and a few of her friends over for a catch-up evening. It was one of those dinner parties where they'd all drink too much wine, laugh a little too loud, and pretend everything was fine. She must have thought I'd be too distracted to notice. I grilled steaks out back, like I always did, the smell of them sizzling on the grill filling the air. The evening was warm, almost too warm for late fall, but I didn't mind. I smiled like a good host, filled their wine glasses, and let them talk about whatever it was they talked about. Most of it was a blur, something about travel plans and the newest book club picks. I just kept nodding, trying to ignore the knot in my stomach. When her sister Katie asked where Amanda had gotten the new necklace, I felt my jaw tighten. Amanda looked right at me, her smile almost too confident. "A gift from someone who understands style," she said, her eyes locking with mine for a moment, longer than was comfortable. I just nodded, played dumb. That necklace had been sitting in the cabin safe 2 weeks ago. I'd seen it there when I'd pulled out my dad's watch. I knew where it came from, and I knew who had given it to her. But I didn't say a word. Let her think she was in control. Let her have her little game. Later, after everyone had drunk a little too much, and the sound of laughter echoed through the house, I found my chance. Amanda excused herself to take a shower, leaving her phone and laptop on the kitchen counter. She never thought I'd be paying attention. Never thought I'd be the one to notice the way her messages pinged on her screen while she was out of the room. I walked over to the kitchen table, took a deep breath, and started with the phone. It wasn't locked. No passcode, no nothing. I went straight for the texts. It wasn't hard to find the messages between her and Tyler. They were full of those stupid little pet names they'd probably spent too much time thinking up, like they were some high school couple. I scrolled through them quickly, taking screenshots as I went. There were too many to count. Plans for the weekend, messages about how much she couldn't wait to see him, and some that were more specific than I ever needed to know. I saved everything, every word. Next, I grabbed her laptop. It wasn't locked either, of course. The password was her middle name, the one she'd told me, back when she thought I wouldn't care. I opened it up, copied a few key files, and backed everything up to my drive. Emails between her and some of the other contractors, receipts from Tyler for consulting, and a few more bank transfers I hadn't seen yet. They were planning something, all right, but I didn't know exactly what. I didn't need to. I had the proof. I heard the shower turn off upstairs, and I shoved everything back where it belonged, cleaned up my mess. I even made sure to leave her phone exactly where it was, like nothing had changed. Amanda was bold, too bold. She thought I was too stupid to notice, but she'd gotten sloppy. They always are when they think they've won. I stood in the kitchen for a moment, staring at the phone, the laptop. We walked into the county courthouse Monday morning, the cold marble floors echoing beneath our feet. Roy was already there, standing tall, his eyes sharp behind his wire-framed glasses. He had already filed the asset freeze, and I could feel the tension in the air as we approached the courtroom doors. Amanda was there too, sitting with her high-end divorce lawyer, that smug look on her face like she expected to waltz out with half of everything I'd worked for. She hadn't even bothered to glance at me as I entered, probably too sure of herself. I didn't care. She'd had plenty of time to think she was winning. We took our seats, and the judge, a no-nonsense woman with gray hair and a permanent frown, opened the case. She barely looked at either of us before Roy stood up, calm as always, and began laying it out. He started with the basics: infidelity, misuse of marital funds, attempted theft of heirlooms. Then came the clincher. Everything I owned was already in the name of Stanton Holdings. Amanda's lawyer stood up and objected immediately, trying to paint me as controlling, as someone who'd manipulated everything from the start. But Roy wasn't rattled. He reached into his briefcase, pulled out a thick folder, and slapped it onto the table. "This is a record of all assets held by Stanton Holdings," Roy said, his voice even but firm, "including deeds, titles, and receipts. Mrs. Langley has no legal claim to any of these assets." He paused, letting the words sink in. She never did. There was a shift in the room, a tightness that settled like a storm. Amanda's lawyer tried to get a word in, but the judge didn't let him. Roy wasn't finished. He slid a set of photos across the table toward the judge. The photos were hard to look at. Amanda and Tyler at my cabin. Her in my clothes. The two of them on my boat dock, laughing like they belonged there. There was one where they were lying in my bed, smiling at the camera. The judge flipped through them quickly, her face unreadable, before she looked up at Amanda, her eyes narrowing. I could see Amanda's face tighten, her lips pressing together as if she were trying to hold it all in. When Amanda's lawyer tried to object again, the judge raised her hand, cutting him off. "Mrs. Langley," she said, her voice stern, "you're lucky he's not pursuing harsher penalties." She paused, the weight of her words landing with a thud. "There will be no more games here, no more manipulation. You will return everything that does not belong to you." I didn't even look at Amanda then. Didn't need to. I was done looking at her. I was done with all the lies and the pretending. I stood up, my voice steady as I spoke. "I don't want much," I said. "Just everything that doesn't belong to her. The watch, the necklace, the things she took, and everything else in my name stays where it is." I could feel her burning glare from across the room, but I didn't flinch. She'd made her choice. Now it was time for me to make mine. The judge nodded, making some final notes. "The court will finalize the orders shortly. For now, I expect compliance with the asset freeze and the return of all stolen property." As we stood to leave, Roy clapped me on the back, his expression grim. "You did good, son. You kept your head. Now we wait." I didn't need to say anything back. I didn't need to. 2 weeks later, Amanda moved out. There was a little tension, but she didn't fight the outcome. She left behind most of her things, probably too embarrassed to show her face. The house felt emptier with every box she packed up. Tyler? He disappeared too, once he realized there was no fortune to ride, no luxury vacation homes or endless cash waiting for him to spend. Typical. He wasn't looking for love, he was looking for a way in. Once he knew she wasn't going to be a payday, he was gone. I kept the house, the company, the cabin, everything that had mattered. I even kept the dog, her clothes, a few bags left in the closet, a small settlement she agreed to, probably just to get out of town. And that apartment she'd picked out, the one she thought would make her feel independent, was hers. Let her have it. Folks around town started whispering, as they always do when things like this go down. A couple of people asked me what happened, like they wanted to know every detail. I just shrugged and said, "She made her choice." Roy called me a week later to let me know Amanda's lawyer tried to renegotiate, asking for more. I told him not to bother. It was done. It was over. A month later, I stood on my deck with a cold beer in hand, watching the sun set over the lake. The colors were fading into deep oranges and purples, the kind of quiet sunset that felt like a new chapter. For the first time in years, I felt like myself again. There was no weight on my shoulders anymore, no pretending, no wondering what was going on behind my back. The company's been doing better without Amanda poking around, trying to impress her book club with design upgrades or pushing for things that didn't make sense. It's like the place finally got some breathing room. I hired a new foreman, a guy who's got his head on straight, and I've been giving bonuses to the crew. They deserve it. They work hard, and for the first time in a while, I feel like I'm running things again, not just putting out fires. I finally fixed the roof on the cabin too. It had been leaking for years, and I kept putting it off, like it didn't matter. But now, I've got time to do the things I'd put off for so long. A couple weeks ago, I bought back my dad's watch from a pawn shop 2 towns over. The guy didn't even realize what he had. I walked in, saw it sitting there behind the counter, and knew it was mine. I paid cash for it, like it was no big deal. Some weekends I take the boat out alone, just me and the dog. The boat's quieter than I remember, the water's calm, and I don't mind the silence. It's good to have the space to think. Quiet's a good thing. I've been thinking about expanding the business too, maybe into home builds again, something I shelved when Amanda said it was too much risk. She always wanted to play it safe, but I've got enough now to take a chance. I'm ready to move forward. I've also been talking with Roy about setting up a small scholarship for tradesmen, something in my dad's name, not for show or recognition, just because it's time. My dad always taught me the value of hard work, of building something from the ground up, and I want to pass that on. It's the kind of thing that matters. It's the kind of thing I can stand behind. Things are falling into place little by little, and I can feel it. The world's different now, but it's mine again. Last week, I got a letter in the mail. No return address, but I recognized the handwriting right away. Amanda's. I almost didn't open it, but something made me pull it out, unfold the paper, and read. She didn't say much, just that she was sorry, that she misjudged what mattered and hoped I was doing all right. I read it once, then folded it back up. No anger, no rush to rip it apart. I just put it in the drawer with the divorce papers and closed it. I don't know if I'll ever respond. Not out of spite, but because I don't see the point. What's there left to say? She thought I'd break. Thought I'd fall apart when she left. She was wrong. I didn't break. I didn't even bend. I just did what men like me do. I kept working, kept showing up. I didn't get revenge by yelling or taking her to court for blood. That would have been easy. It's what everyone expects. But I wasn't interested in that. My revenge was simple. I was ready. I didn't let her take a damn thing that wasn't hers. The next chapter of my life, it's mine. Built by me, for me, on solid ground. No one can take that away.